It has been little more than a month since the Democrats' first debate performance, but a lot has happened. So CNN political commentators are here to chat about what they'll be watching for, what excites them, who has the most to lose. So with me, David Urban. He is a Trump 2020 campaign advisor and a D.C. lobbyist who represents interests in defense, transportation, and energy companies.
Let me hold something.
There's some bass happening out here, by the way. Also here, CNN contributors Bakari Sellers, Angela Rye, and Alexandra Rojas, who is the executive director of Justice Democrats. They're rolling it out just for us this afternoon. So first, let's
I thought that was like David playing E40 on his phone over here. I was like, what?
I would definitely be the one playing E40.
I don't know if everyone at home can hear this, but
David, that's from the 90s. Hit the whoa.
This after quoting Snoop Dogg this morning. All right, so anyway, let me get the train back on the tracks here. Round robin, Alexandra, first to you. Just what is the one thing you're really watching for this evening?
Well, I think you have sort of two wings of the Democratic Party. You have Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who are talking about Trump as a symptom to many problems that America is facing. And I think the more moderate candidates on stage that are talking about Trump as the problem. So what I think we're going to be watching is the sort of progressive champions on stage, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, making their case to voters as to why their vision of, a new Democratic Party that excites young people like myself, women, and people of color, versus, largely the Democratic Party of the 1990s that, mimicked Republicans in a lot of way and catered a lot to Wall Street and corporations. So their vision is, going after the power structures that have been halting progress in America for so long, as opposed to catering to Republicans.
Angela Rye, what are you looking for?
Well, first, I'm looking for just remembering the names of some of the people who are going to be on the stage. It's like there's this thing that comes to mind. There's something from Real Housewives of Atlanta back in the day. Last time I probably watched it, when they said, Portia said, "Who said that?" It's like there's going to be a who said that, but I'm like, really, who was that? I also think, just to your point, Alexandra, I think it's important for us to see the Democratic Party as a spectrum.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a really too much now of an us versus them. I think the beauty of having 9,000 people running for president is that there are people that are super progressive and there are people that are kind of more moderate. There's a full spectrum now.
Yeah.
Sure, Kamala Harris may not have a Medicare for All plan that mirrors Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, but she's certainly not Mayor Bullock. And I think that's important for us to recognize as well.
Governor Bullock, yes. Governor, yes. Mayor.
Oh,
it's all right. It's all right.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's the music. Who said that? Again, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to demote.
We should remind everyone you have officially endorsed Senator Harris. That said, what's the one thing you're really watching for?
I'm watching for Hickenlooper and Bullock tonight. I think it's going to be like Hickenlooper and Bullock versus everybody.
And that's isn't it Hickenlooper?
Hickenlooper and Bullock.
Are you serious?
Mayor.
Seriously. So what I think is going to happen? What I think is going to happen tonight is you're going to have these individuals like Hickenlooper, Bullock, try to take on what they view to be the left, take on what they view
center
to be
stage tonight.
Center stage. So they're going to go square in the face of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, Medicare for All, Green New Deal, etc.
Yeah.
Hickenlooper telegraphed some of that. They're going to talk about, because the difference between Hickenlooper and Bullock and everyone else on stage is they can point to legislative accomplishments that they've had within their own state.
They've run states.
Correct, and they can call those progressive accomplishments, and they're going to talk about the way they did that. They're going to try to force themselves into the Bernie Sanders lane. Now, the problem with this theory is that their presidential campaign may literally only last 2 more hours, and those would be the 2 hours on stage tonight. And so I think they're going to come out like Tyson. And Tyson used to come across the ring in the first 30 seconds and just throw haymaker out there, haymaker after haymaker. And I expect Bullock and Hickenlooper to do the same.
Yeah. David Urban?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things you can have here in this debate is not being noticed. Angela points out there are all these people on the stage. If you're not noticed, you fade away into anonymity after tonight.
You're gone.
The second thing I'm looking for, and we've talked about this a little bit here, is Rahm had this open letter. Rahm Emanuel had this open letter yesterday offering a cautionary tale to folks who are running, saying, look, we should govern from the middle. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement for the middle. There's not a great deal of excitement for Joe Biden, even though his numbers are high. No one's excited to have Joe Biden on the ticket. There's lots of excitement for people down ballot. People aren't even polling very high. Tons of energy, tons of excitement. And so how does that translate? How do you grab that lightning in a bottle and transfer it to someone who's going to run in the fall? If Joe Biden's the nominee, I think a lot of people are going to be sitting home saying, well, that's not my guy. I can't really get fired up about that. And so that's the challenge I think Democrats have.
Right, which is the huge quandary. Like, do you throw your support behind a Joe Biden who's more moderate, or are you more excited about she's been around for a while, but a fresher face like an Elizabeth Warren? We've talked a lot in the last couple of days about the issue of race, right? And I heard you all this morning. I was glued to that panel this morning. One of the points that you all were making on the issue of race, as it may come up, is it's a random drawing, folks, and it just happened that tonight it's a all white
night.
It is every single one.
Yeah.
And so if this issue comes up, how can these candidates authentically address this very serious issue of race without coming off as pandering?
You know what, Brooke, and this is going to sound like pandering, but this is true, and you know me well enough to know this to be true. You are a great example for them. And what I mean by that is there is not a single moment. We were joking in makeup. I was just going to say this because, I'm very transparent. I was like, Brooke is honorary. She has a card. And I'm just saying.
We're working on yours, David.
Yeah, David's got a little bit further to go. But what I mean by that is there's something about allyship that comes from a place of, I may not know everything, but I'm standing with you. I see your pain, and I'm going to stand with you in it. I'm going to hear you out. And you always, like on every show, Brooke, you have always been that way. And I think it's so important that we don't just have candidates like that. We have friends like that. We have bosses like that. We have peers like that. And we truly have neighbors and friends like that. And so that's what I think they should be looking for. If they don't have folks like you on their campaign, they're in trouble.
But you can't learn. You have to have that in your DNA. You can't be coached to be authentic, right? That's something.
Well, you can't coach to be authentic,
right.
but you can learn about people's experiences.
absolutely.
My mom says all the time, the greatest skill we can learn in life is perspective taking. If I can't hear you, David Urban, I'm not going to ever understand your perspective.
And that is going to be the biggest test, because we somewhat know that I'm interested for the voices that are not Beto, Pete, Elizabeth, and Bernie when it comes to these issues, because I think we have a problem in our party that is more widespread than people want to give it credit for.
Absolutely.
And I'm interested to hear the other 6 people on that stage have to talk about these issues of race, because I want to give Bullock a chance, right? But the first way for him not to get that chance is to be somewhat indifferent to the issues that affect African Americans. And, I always tell people that one of the biggest ways that we can go about framing these issues that directly affect people of color is, we care more than just about criminal justice reform.
Yes.
Right.
People of color want to make money too.
Yep.
Let's talk
Economy,
about
healthcare.
Let's talk about
Education.
these issues,
Education.
but talk about these issues in the way that they're ingrained in these communities of color. So it's going to be a challenge for them all.
So
Let me-
the other
yeah,
thing
and
too.
Let me actually, if I may,
No,
just
sure.
hit pause, because I want to come with you, starting with you in the next segment. Let me
Okay.
sneak a quick break in. Stay with me. He says, what I have done for African Americans, no other president has. I would argue, check Abraham Lincoln, perhaps. I digress. The president is quadrupling down, as CNN is learning. Some of his aides in the White House are uncomfortable over his attacks on minority members of Congress, including Chairman Cummings and the 4 congresswomen who are not white, who he directed to go back to where they came from. Moments ago, the president denied his attacks on Cummings were part of any sort of political strategy, saying that he was simply stating facts about the poor conditions in Baltimore. And as all of this is happening, we have a new poll that shows that a majority of those surveyed believe President Trump is racist. So my commentators are back with me, and I want to begin with you, fine gentlemen on my right.
I always get the easiest question.
I was looking at David.
You guys, starting with you. You want to respond to the president? You guys
sure. I mean, it's his statement was ridiculous and over the top. I mean, he may be the least racist person in the world if you take out birtherism, the Muslim ban, being sued by the Department of Labor for his conditions in New Jersey, for marking C for colored on individuals' housing applications, for the Central Park 5. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that go into this calculus. I just think that I firmly believe that the President of the United States is racist. However, I will say that he is a part of a larger issue in this country of race we got to deal with. And it's not just Donald Trump. He just happens to be leader of the free world.
Yeah.
David, how do you defend
Yeah,
him?
so listen, I'm not going to defend it because you can't defend some of these things, right? So I think Elijah Cummings, the issue of attacking Baltimore, I think he got in over his head on this one. I think he was kind of, tit for tat, my border sucks, well, your city sucks, and then it devolved, and that's unfortunate. I point out, listen, politics is about addition, not subtraction. Okay, that's you want it's 1 + 1 + 1. We want to include more people, not exclude people. And the president's losing, and I said this to wherever camera's on, tweet about the good things, right? Tweet about the positive things. Tweet about, first step act, economic. He hits on it very briefly on the way to the helicopter, but Focus on the positive things we're doing for cities.
But what about
for-
his own aides who are privately bulking? Why are they not stopping him?
Because you can't unless you let, I don't know how you would stop the president. I think that people.
How about
in the
start
White-
with saying,
Listen,
Mr. President?
I do believe that people push back. In fact, I do believe they push back in the White House.
Yeah.
And say, look, this is focus on the positive things, right? Things that unite us. Appeal to the better angels here, not the things that divide us. He thinks at some level that it works.
Well,
And at
according
some
to
level-
our own reporting, they don't want to go there.
Listen, and at some
with the
level,
president.
it does work. People go there with him. He doesn't respond, right?
But it's
Okay.
I think it's
Alex.
absolutely frightening that people within his own administration that are supposed to be giving him advice about how to not mess up on these things can't even do that. And
No,
you have the
they
president of
do,
the
whether
United
listen-
States abdicating the responsibility of representing every major city in America, not just singling out one. And so I think it speaks to the fact that his leadership, again, is not pointing out the good things because there's really not that much. We have 60% of Americans right now that still, if they had an $800 emergency bill, aren't going to be able to recover if that happened tomorrow. You have 1 in 5 Americans right now that still don't have access to health care. You have trillions of both young and old that are still crippled by student debt. And so if we're talking about an economy that is working for everybody, it's not. Who is it actually working
Alexander,
for?
look, you look, this is indisputable. Real wage growth at the bottom level. Production and non-supervisory jobs has grown steadily over the past
I think
few years.
the Trump administration
That's real
likes to
wage growth.
tout the
No,
unemployment rate, but you talk about
that's not
underemployment, especially
that's not
right
unemployment.
here.
That's real wage growth.
Okay,
That's
but
people's
you
wages
also
increasing,
regularly
not just
take-
Well, look
unemployment.
at within my
Well,
lifetime,
okay.
lots of people have not seen, wages increase all that much over the past
I'm
20 to
talking
30
facts.
years.
These are facts.
No, and I believe
I
and
am
she's
also talking
facts,
about
too.
facts as well.
You also regularly take credit for economic accomplishments and gains that should be given to the Obama administration, number one. Number two, I think an issue here is Donald Trump's racism. The fact that he's talking about the African Americans are calling the White House proud. I don't know who is acting as if they're African American. Perhaps maybe Russia again,
No,
but
listen,
it's certainly not any
Angela.
African American calling the president, telling him thank you when he is adding insult to injury to someone who has done
Can I-
so
I would
much
just
for
say
the
this.
black
I would
community.
just say this. I would think that you would be the first person to point out that African Americans are not monolithic in their beliefs.
I understand that, but I'm also going to be the first black person today to tell you that the African Americans are not calling the White House to thank Donald Trump for calling out corruption in Baltimore when he regularly is assaulting and insulting members of Congress and every black person in a position of power.
can I also say
Bakari, are
something
you
that-
unblocked yet? Did he unblock
No, I'm
you yet
still
on
blocked.
Twitter?
I've been blocked for a few
I mean,
years.
come
Go
on.
ahead,
But I do have to say that I have to give David some credit because David at least stepping out here and saying that this was wrong
Yeah.
is showing more courage than the elected Republicans that we have.
Sure.
And having the audacity
That's a
to
low
say,
bar.
I get that, but you got to give credit at some point. And so,
Thank
actually,
you,
but
thank
hold
you,
on,
David.
have a
I'm
positive record to run
Hold
on. We have a
one
positive
second,
record.
David, because what I'm saying is that while you have individuals like a Lindsey Graham, while you have other individuals who are complicit and not even being willing to step up and say this is wrong. I mean, that
it's
is
hard
the
for
problem.
me to
But I
give
think-
credit to somebody. I'm sorry, Alexander, just really quick, and then I'm tag teaming you in. It's hard for me to give credit to someone for saying this is wrong when nobody will say it's wrong enough for him to go. It's an abuse of power. It is substantially wrong. He is abusing the office, and he's using his platform to bully people who have fought to make this country better. So I can't give you credit for saying something is wrong when you're not willing to go to the next
You get the
step.
last word.
Yeah, and I would just say
Well
that
done.
the reason why there's a healthy tension, I think, happening right now, because the reality is that people are still hurting. I think part of the reason why we lost the presidency is because we didn't have a nominee that spoke to the issues of transformative change for real working people. And so if we just dismiss and say, hey, the economy is still great, healthcare is great, we talk about everything is fine right now, that is dismissing the very real problems of, the 60% of Americans that I pointed out that literally if they had an $800 emergency room bill tomorrow, they would be out in the street. That is a problem of our economy that extended long before Donald Trump, extended long before Barack Obama, and as a Democratic Party, we got a lot to do to fix it.
All right, y'all. Thank you very much.